Welcome back to Connection Point Studies. It's great to have you here. This is the third week in this series called Get Back. I'm actually preaching 4 weeks on this, Alex. Alex has joined me. He's our Connection Point Study Director. He's the pastor at Connection Groups, and this has really been great to have you along on this. This is your first fall that you've taken on this responsibility along with your tweens. And how do you think it's going?
It seems to be going well. We've had a lot of new groups, a lot of new people signing up and getting connected, and so we just hope that we can continue to get those people connected.
Remind them again, what are the purpose of these studies? When they pull this up and they're doing this, why do we do this? What is the purpose?
Well, I mean, it's kind of multifaceted in the purpose, but one is to allow them to go a little deeper into the message, allow the time that they spend to come around with others and to ask questions about the Scripture and ask questions just about their own lives. And the other part is it allows the church, which admittedly we are a larger church, but it allows you to begin to know people and to get to know people on a personal level.
Yeah. And we hope people will use these studies because it will connect them to the sermon series, keep them connected as a group, and we can kind of share a little vision stuff. And we're going to use this as an opportunity from time to time for you to share with groups. And so it's great to have you along on this thing. So this is the third week. This week is actually going to be 2 weeks of messages that I've done, and it will help people kind of combine some scriptures. We're covering Romans chapter 12, and I think it's verses 9 all the way through 21. But before we get started, we always do a warm-up question, which is that question that we want everybody to answer. So there you go, Alex. Give them that question.
So our warm-up question this week is what is one thing that gets you excited?
All right, Alex, can you really keep it to one? I can think of a bunch.
Oh, there's a lot. No, definitely.
Okay, but what's one thing for you? What would you say? Boy, you say, that gets me really going here.
I mean, it's so hard sometimes to go, and mine can almost come seasonal depending on when it is. But boy, one thing that gets me excited is when I'm able to take my kids and my wife, and we're able to go out. Our family has a home on Hood Canal, and we can go out there and just get away and just have time like that. And my wife isn't as excited as I do about that, which she'll be sharing in our small group of like, that's your excited thing. But she knows how much I just love getting out there. So.
Yeah. For me, I think of a ton of things that get me excited. I love what's happening in the church. I love all kinds of things, but being out in the wild with the fall and the crisp air and the frost on the ground and the leaves turning and hiking and putting some miles on some boots, man, that is just awesome stuff for me. It just gets my blood flowing. It's awesome. Great stuff. Hopefully everyone shared a little bit. I know that was a great sharing question. So we've asked them to read Romans chapter 12, verses 9 through 11. We want them to read it all the way through. And before they come back, they need to answer a question. So let's give them that question.
Right. This question is going to be on verse 9. So make sure you specifically read verse 9. And the question is this, has anyone ever pretended to love you?
All right, so this is an interesting question. I think it's one of those that you have to answer. I immediately think of something for me. How about you?
Oh, yeah, it's lots.
Yeah. So why do you think Paul, in this verse, is saying don't just pretend? Is that our tendency?
I think it can be our tendency. And whether or not it's a natural tendency, I think it depends on the person.
Well, you know what I like about this? He's saying just don't pretend to love them, really love them. There's a difference. If I pretend to love you, I can walk away and I don't care. But if I really love you, I walk away, and when you're not there, I care about what's going on in your life. So this is kind of what we want to create in a small group setting too, right? We want people to know their names. We want people to connect in a deeper level. And that's what really Paul's encouraging here, right? Christians?
Well, it is, but the hard part is that, so if you were to walk away and I think that you love me, it's hard for me to know that you don't love me, right? It's one of those things that shows back up when you really need it. As you said, you are thinking about me as you walk away, and that's the thing that we're that.
Which is really weird. I don't want to think about you, but but I would just say to you, Alex, I do think it means that actions speak louder than words, which means that if I know you're going through a hard time, it means I call you up on the phone and talk to you and say, hey, what's going on? It's the action that's following. And it's really hard to love somebody intentionally enough to just follow through with my actions,
Right.
which is what this is talking about. Now, we've got a second question around verse 10. What is that question?
So with this, what are ways that we show genuine love to others?
So genuine love is an interesting word, which I think Paul's talking about here. Don't just pretend to love. Genuine love is the real stuff.
Right.
So what are some ways we do that, you think?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of times it's a matter of it's a respect thing, it's an honor thing, and it goes back to the actions, right? I mean, just we kind of already answered this question, and you might have already answered it in your small group as well as you're talking about it. But it goes back into those actions that is the true love that shows it.
You know, Alex, this is a really critical thing. When I shared messages out of this passage, this was around the relationships that we have with our kids and our wives and our husbands and, you know, all of the different relationships you find yourself in. Paul gives this instruction, which really works well. Genuine love cements a relationship, really makes it good. So it works in every relationship. And it's just really good advice. Now, we've got a third question, and this is really a large section of Scripture, which has a whole list of things that you're supposed to do. So I want you to kind of really read through and think about this list of things. It's verses 12 through 19, if I remember right. And we've got a question for you to answer after you've read through those together.
Right, so it is correct, 12 through 19. And the question is what do these verses say about how Christians should live their lives? And why are these instructions important?
So when I look at all these verses, they're hard to live up to, right? I mean, don't take revenge, love your enemies, treat each other. I mean, they're all about things we do with each other, right? I'm going to suggest that these verses are the way you genuinely show love. Do you agree with that?
They are. I do. I think it's it would be that measuring stick of putting it up there. I
That's
think
probably true.
You know, is it attainable every day? Well, I think that I know I fall short, and in measuring myself up to God every day of saying it's successful. But this allows me though to aim for something, right? Versus measuring myself up to what the world would say would be important, and that's the difference. Is how do we go about really setting up that measuring stick?
Yeah. So my suggestion, I don't know whether people would do this, but is to reread this. I mean, in all regard to all relationships, to be able to reread this and be able to put this to action into their life. Now, we've got one last question before the application question, and this is toward the last two verses, the hard verses, verses 20 and 21. And this question is an interesting question. I want you to ask it.
It is. So verses 20 and 21, does good conquer evil? But with that, we have a follow-up. So have you seen this before?
So this is an interesting question. I mean, Paul's essentially asserting that you overcome evil by doing good. And we're saying, is it true? It seems sometimes like evil wins out, doesn't it? I wonder how many were struggling with that, honestly. But maybe in the long run it doesn't. Or maybe there's not enough good done to overcome evil. Is that?
Well, the scripture says that good does overcome evil. So, but yet when you look at things that go on, and, often I think we have just our own our own history to look at in order for us to make decisions on. Oftentimes, I think it can be frustrating when you are somebody who does good. I mean, I'm being open here. Especially, you watch the news and different things going on out there, and you often can think, does good really overcome evil?
Right.
But then, you go back to Scripture, and it says, no, it will. Now, the hard part can be for us, I think, is that often we think that should happen in our lifetime.
Well, and this is talking about how we treat our enemies.
Right.
So when you experience evil in your life, somebody that really is genuinely opposed to you in kind of an evil way, the way you handle it is not to fight evil with evil, is to overcome evil with good. That's the hard part. That's the application part, really, which is what we want them to focus on a little bit. How do you overcome evil in your world today? Which I think is all the way back to the very first verse, which is how do you transform your mind? Think about things differently. And Paul ends with this thing on how do we confront evil. So that's what we want you to do. We want you to take a little bit of time in your group and talk about that. How do you overcome evil? What are you going to do good that will overcome the evil things that you're experiencing maybe in your life? And I think you'll have some lively discussion and all that. Everybody share, pray together. Now, before we go and before you do that, we've got some instructions. Next week, we're not going to have a connection point study. So what do we want them to do next week?
So next week, what we would like to encourage you guys to do is get together as a group on a social occasion. Maybe the best day it works is after church. You guys pick someone's home or somewhere to go out to as a group, but do something and maybe invite somebody who doesn't normally come to your small group and have them come in and see it. Have fun and really just kind of relax a little bit with each other.
We have a special speaker this Sunday, and this is a comedian. It's a family service. It's going to be a great time. So we hope you enjoy that. And then we'll start a brand new series the next time we get together at Connection Point Studies. We'll see you next time.